PPC or LRM-10 pack. And the 10 pack is important because we're looking at 10 versus 10. Do you take the guarantee or do you take the spread? That's what we're going to explore in this Battletech question. Now, there's a couple of pieces to the process that you have to go through in order to cause damage to a mech. And there's a bunch of floating numbers, this idea that you start with a base modifier. And I'm going to be simplifying things a little bit so the new players to the game can kind of begin to think in this way, kind of reducing Battletech to this idea of mathematics and probability while leaving a chance for personal tabletop glory. But essentially, we start out with your pilot/gunnery skill. And from there, it goes up based on your ability, whether you walk, whether you run, whether you jump. There's modifiers for that your opponent is going to throw up. How many hexes has they moved? Is cover in play or other factors that might work against you? Did you take a sensor hit? So there's this idea of I'm trying to keep the numbers down low. My opponent, the target, is trying to keep the numbers up high. You have to roll to hit. Now, sometimes that's a really good roll, 8s, 9s. Sometimes it's a little higher, 10s. Sometimes it's an absolute long shot. And one of the ways that you break through that is to have redundancy. If I fire one PPC and I need a 10 or higher to hit, well, tabletop glory, I'm probably still going to take those odds. But my odds of hitting go up tremendously if I have 2 or more. So I have to hit first. And then depending on the facing, it's going to be at a different location. Then we apply the damage. And whether that goes against armor or that goes against internals, it kind of moves from that perspective. So in exploring this, there are certain weapons, and most of the weapons in the Battletech universe do a fixed amount of damage. I hit you with that medium laser, you take 5 points. I hit you with that PPC, you take 10 points. And I use the PPC because that's kind of one of the big guns in the Inner Sphere Succession era in terms of range versus damage. Now, of course, autocannon 20, I love big guns, but the range offsets that. You have to get point blank. And there are opposite extremes like an autocannon, the lower autocannon AC2, extreme range, but the damage is really pulled down. But we have this one crossover where similar range, similar maximum damage, is it better with a fixed or a variable? You hit with the PPC, you do 10 points. You hit with the missiles, you have to see how much damage and you have to see where they hit based on the table. Now, is one better than the other? Now, in the ultimate world, you'd have a mix of both because the advantage that the PPC has is you are hitting 10 points concentrating on one specific point on the mech. You are going to blast off 10 points of armor slab. You hit in a few areas, you've now weakened 3 or 4 areas on that mech where you can have a potential breakthrough. Sometimes you want the spread of missiles. And we're only looking at LRM-10 packs because in theory 10 versus 10 PPC. But this could apply to any spread type weapon. It's not so much about the damage, although the damage is important. It's also about the fact that for a one weapon profile, I can potentially hit multiple places. That's the advantage of the missiles. The PPC is 1-to-1. I take one shot, I fire one weapon, I hit one location. The missiles, I have the potential to hit multiple locations and push that breakthrough. Another consideration is the fact that the long-range missiles can fire indirect. You don't need line of sight. You do need a spotter. You do need certain conditions. Yes, it's going to increase the modifiers depending on the location of the spotter combined with your range and where the opponent, the target, physically is. What's in range and how does that work? So from that perspective, it becomes much harder to hit, but you also have the ability, in addition to the spread, to hit indirect. Maybe that's just a one-off thing you do. You're running in with your Atlas or your Cyclops or your Grasshopper and or the Valkyrie, even at a lower battle value, and you can fire indirect and something to do. Maybe you hit, maybe you don't. Or it could be part of the big grand plan where you've got multiple LRM carriers and leveraging it that way. That is a tactica. That is important. It's important to know, to utilize, to look out for. But we're going to shift that over to the side for a moment. So it depends on your lance composition and what you're trying to achieve. If you ask the question, is it better to take the guaranteed 10 points? If I connect, guaranteed 10 points. Or do I go with the missile spread, which it has the potential for that, but it's going to be spread out. It has the potential for less than that, but the LRM packs have the possibility to hit multiple locations per one shot. That, on a side note, is where we see something like the longbow, where it has the 2 LRM launchers and the 2 5s to really, really spread out and hit ping multiple places, or an LRM carrier. 3 20 packs, 20, 40, 60 real-time missiles spread out. That has the potential for a lot of bite, a lot of damage, literally to saturate a target. Knowing how to use it, knowing how to build your lance, and making that math judgment to say, better for the guaranteed, the fixed, or better for the variable.